How is everybody doing? Strength Chat episode 138, and today I have got a very special guest for you. Today I'm joined by a powerlifter who is widely regarded as the greatest powerlifter of all time, setting over 71 world records. Today I am joined by the one and only Ed Coan. How are you doing?
I'm actually really good. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot for taking the time to jump on.
Oh, you're welcome. I enjoy it.
Oh, good. How's everything been with you? What have you been up to recently? What's been happening in your world?
Well, at the beginning of all the COVID stuff, a lot of workshops I do were canceled, but the last few weeks I've had a couple already, some back to back, and starting next week I've got two more coming up. So it's starting to loosen up. Besides that, I just do my training and keep healing up all my old injuries
Oh,
and just
good,
have fun in the gym.
good. So your routine's getting a little bit back to normal then, with traveling around doing seminars and yeah. How's your training been going and managing all that sort of stuff with everything going on?
I haven't had a problem. My sister and brother-in-law they have a really large house. In their basement, I have a squat rack, two different benches, enough weights and dumbbells, a Smith machine, a lat machine. So it was still no problem at all.
Making me jealous there. I wish I had that in my garage, which would have been good.
It's a little weird because if you're by yourself, you don't have the gym atmosphere. It's hard to get going. So it was more of like working out than training.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And how have the seminars been going since they've been sort of up and running? Has anything?
Oh, those are always good.
Yeah.
I run them in a workshop manner because I always got bored just listening to people talk.
Yeah.
But if I can have 25 people and do hands-on with every single one of them in the squat, bench, deadlift throughout the day, and then we talk afterwards, then it's more like we're buddies then, and no one's afraid to ask questions, whatever they didn't learn already.
Yeah, it's a like a little bit of an icebreaker. I know when I've gone to workshops and courses and that sort of stuff, the practical side of it, having that at the start is always pretty good, and then you can sit down and talk about things.
Yeah, so people realize I'm the same as them. I just grew up in a gym. You know, outside of the gym, don't listen to me on anything. Inside the gym, no problem.
So for everyone listening who might not know your background in powerlifting and strength training and coaching, do you just want to give a little bit of a background to yourself?
Sure. When I was a kid, I played most all regular sports: baseball, basketball, football. I wrestled in high school. I didn't go out for American football because in high school I was 4'11". I was 98 pounds. So there was a 98-pound wrestling class. Yeah. So I went out for that. Yeah. So I wrestled for a while, and then I tried bodybuilding after seeing Pumping Iron. And then I met Arnold in person, and my head was right in his chest. And I was like, shit, I can't be Arnold. So I tried to be Franco Columbu. And I liked how Franco was strong. And then I saw Bill Kazmaier compete on TV in a powerlifting contest. And I was like, well, wait a second. You could be that big, that strong, not have to diet like crazy and wear those little shorts on stage and pose. I think I got my sport. So I just started from there.
Oh, cool. And then how did it come about with the coaching in the workshops? Was that something that you always wanted to get involved in?
No, I always did it in training. Yeah. Because I was pretty like a little deficit disorder when I was growing up. So I never participated as much as I would observe.
Yeah.
So by me being able to observe, I observed it, I think, in a different way than everyone else. So that's how I learned how to lift. I learned more from observing than I ever did from a book or anything. Yeah. And then when I was done competing, I got onto Facebook.
Okay.
My woman put me on Facebook, and all of a sudden, I started getting messages about seminars and stuff like that. Yeah. And then Instagram came along too, and I could be as busy as I want. I don't even try to promote myself like that. It's just if I have one coming up, I'll announce it. But I don't go out and go crazy and try to drum up business and stuff like that. They usually come to me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, with the experience and success that you've had, you know, I'm not surprised that people are, you know, coming to you for to run workshops and that sort of stuff. So when you got involved in powerlifting and started lifting, what were your first sort of couple of competitions like, and how did it progress until you got onto like the international scene, or was it, you know, just getting involved in lifting and enjoying it, and is that how you progressed through?
I never didn't enjoy it. I still am a fan of it.
Yeah.
But my first competition when I was 16 years old, I was a very, very light 75 kilo lifter. And my first contest, that they actually didn't have squat racks that weren't low enough.
Right.
So they had to take it off and put it on my back. And at that time, I mean, I probably weighed 70 kilos at the most. And it took me 3 tries, but I did a 220 opener. And I benched that day 135. And I think I deadlifted 225. And then I just kept on going in meets. I just loved it. I loved the feeling of getting strong, because that was something I didn't need anyone really for.
Yeah. Was there?
So it's something I could do for myself.
Yeah. Was there any competitions, you know, getting onto the international stage that sort of brought your excitement up a little bit more, or certain competitions that you enjoyed more than others?
Well, I think when you started competing internationally, you start to realize that you're not the man anymore. You're just a lifter.
Yeah.
And they didn't give a shit about anything else.
Yeah.
So then you stop feeling special, and then you just lift for the right reasons, because you want to win. But you know, my thing always wasn't about winning. It was about doing what I thought I was capable of. Then I won.
Yeah.
Then I thought it was pretty good. And you know, my first meet in 1980, my first IPF Worlds I won was in 1984.
Right.
At 82 and a half kilos. So I got strong pretty damn quick.
Yeah.
And then from there, all I did was just train. Yeah. And I like training. I like getting better. The whole point of me getting in the gym in the first place was to get bigger, faster, stronger, you know?
Yeah.
And that was my main objective. Competing was the second thing. I probably could have peaked a little bit better with my training for competitions, but I just enjoyed the training part so much, so it didn't matter as much to me.
Yeah, I think that one thing there that you mentioned, you know, doing it to enjoy and make sure that you could lift the most that you can, and I think sometimes people can sometimes forget that when it gets onto the when it gets to the competition, and start thinking about what other people are doing rather than focus on what you're doing yourself as a lifter, and then, you know, the results can come afterwards.
You see it on Instagram all the time.
Yeah.
You know, follow your damn routine. If you want to get from this point to this point, you have everything mapped out in between. Why do you want to change it? Just to get a few more likes or to show off, or all of a sudden put on a pair of straps or squat high or whatever, and then count it as a lift. It doesn't matter what shit unless you go to a contest.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you've got to be able to do it on the platform.
Yeah.
When you said there about obviously going on to the international stage and the other guys, you know, won't bat an eyelid of who you are. I always like to ask the question of, you know, as such a successful lifter such as yourself, who did you sort of look up to in terms of who were the guys that you wanted to look at to you know, challenge and beat, and who were your sort of mentors when you were lifting?
Fred Hatfield helped me a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Kaz is the reason, when I watched him on TV, that I started powerlifting. And there's so many guys that I liked that were always nice to me. Yeah. I mean, longevity wise, at the time, it was Hideaki Inaba from Japan. Yeah. At 52 or 52 or whatever, 52 kilo class. And longevity would be him.
Yeah.
And I didn't really pay attention. I just tried to get better.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
With because one of the quotes that I think you shared it a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's a question of how did it feel to squat 1,000 pounds? And I think the reply back was, well, it felt the same as you squatting, 500 pounds. And you mentioned there about getting better, and there's a couple of things that you'll say, focus on the detail of things. Don't get too hung up on forgetting about them, because they always play a part. What do you mean about those small things? What small things can have that big impact?
The basics never go out of style.
Yeah.
Everything starts at the beginning. So usually if you have a problem in a lift, it starts at the start. And the start, like in the squat, isn't when you set up with the weight. The start happens when you walk up to the bar, when you start getting underneath it. Yeah. That's the start. If you can make every step perfect, then why wouldn't you have a perfect rep?
Right. Okay.
Think of it that way. On almost every lift you do, I set up perfectly, even if it was assistance work, because I wanted everything to be perfect all the time. Now you completely took that variable out. Now all you got to do is just fill in the sets and reps with what exercises, and you're good to go. Yeah. I followed that format the whole time I lifted. Even today, I try to do it a little bit.
Yeah. Was there any sort of, when you first started lifting, any sort of trial and error, or until you actually refined it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I maxed out in the squat twice a week until I hit 500 pounds, till I hit 227.
Yeah.
And then and my form was horrible because I didn't develop my legs, but I had a strong back. So I would, go this far below parallel and then just bend over and push it up with my back like a good morning. And that works up to a point. Then there's a point where, I'm not going to get any better unless I work my legs, unless I work this. And that's the same with lifting. Everybody has a strength and a weakness, no matter what, no matter who we are. If the gap in between that strength and that weakness gets too big, that means you're only working your strength so much, too much volume on one lift and not concentrating on other little lifts to bring those up. Then you will get injured, or you will have no progress whatsoever anymore.
Yeah. So is that where you start looking at the exercise variation that you might use, or
yes,
try and have a look at the form, how they're actually, like what you mentioned there about turning the squat into a good morning, or would you dial back the weight and focus on technique? How would you go about
my strength, I said, was my back and my hips. My weakness was quads. So all off season would be a high bar, closer stance, Olympic lifting squat, and I'd run through a training cycle like that. My deadlift, I would be on a deficit, either stiff leg deadlifts or regular deficit deadlift with no belt. In the bench, I would take a medium grip, which is like either people take a close grip, the regular grip, or a wide grip. I would take a medium grip, which was like way different than your brain is used to, and I would put my feet up on the bench and do training cycles like that.
And how much would that take out, sort of, especially in the off season, take out would you replace those from the competition lifts, or would you still do your competition lifts and have them sort of afterwards?
I didn't do as much regular competition lifts in the off season. It was a variation that was close that would transfer over.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was strong in a competition lift. It's what lift am I weak in that would transfer over the best that resembles one of the lifts, the competition lifts.
Do you think sometimes people are a little bit worried about doing that and taking a step back from the competition lifts because they feel as though they might lose something from the competition lifts?
It's their fragile ego.
Yeah. Because, you sometimes think, if you've got to work on weaknesses, sometimes you've got to spend a little bit longer time in those areas where you might feel a little bit, uncomfortable.
It's not necessarily spending as much time. It's letting your ego go and realize you're going to be weaker. And I enjoyed that process because I knew I was weak there. And I knew if I bring that up, my other lifts were going to be strong as hell. So why wouldn't you do that? That's just stupidity. That's your ego. And that is not a good, that's not a good sportsman.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned about that, because I know when a lot of the people that are training in the powerlifting club at the gym that I'm in, I saw like beginners to intermediates, and a couple of the intermediates are now looking to get involved in competitions. And I know when I first started, a couple of guys came down, and they just wanted to load the bar up really, really heavy, and just thought it was a max out all the time. And it's one of those things where, if you say, let's take the weight off the bar and just dial it back a little bit, not a lot of people want to do that. But do you think they'd sort of have to learn the hard way, if you like, until weight stops increasing, or they have to actually get to a point where they think, you know what, actually, I need to start working on other things?
Here's what usually happens is someone has a routine. Let's say it's a 10-week routine, and everything goes really well at the beginning. Then they start changing things with the routine, which changes the outcome, of course, at the end. And what happens is they get about to week right around 6 to 7, and they miss. And if you go back, you see they changed something. Usually they tried 1 week, week 5 was easy, so they upped the weight. Or they upped it in week even 3, and it just caught up to them. Now all of a sudden they say this routine sucks, when in reality they suck.
Yeah. Is it because there is that thing of, every week you need to be increasing and increasing? Is it sometimes because I've had that mentality as well, or is it, it's not a bad thing to stay at the same weight that next week and then have 2 weeks at the same weight and then increase it again?
You shouldn't have to have 2 weeks at the same weight. Your program should be written out, and I always wrote it out from the back end to the front end. Because I have an idea of what I want to hit, as long as it's doable, and it's actually, you're capable of doing it. It's in the realm of reason. And then I would just work back and see where I ended up.
Okay.
If I didn't think something was right, I could change it. It's on paper.
Yeah.
But most people don't do that.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
They don't want to take the time.
Yeah. So,
every week has to build upon the next. It has to have a purpose.
Yeah.
So if all your numbers are correct, you really shouldn't have to have a week that you change during it, unless, of course, like, let's say you have a 10-week routine and you make it 11 or 12, you can extend it out, but you can have in there where it's like, you know what, work was really hard, or I don't feel good, where you could take like a deload week, and put it in there. You can have it already in there. You just don't have to have what week you're going to take it in.
Yeah. So do you think, just sort of touching on that in terms of the programming and working back and increasing the weight each week, are missed reps usually down to, like what you mentioned there about ego or increasing the weight too much, or is it more sort of external factors of maybe lack of sleep, lack of food, and that sort of stuff?
Usually, if you're in tune and you're honest with yourself, it's usually something that happens on the outside. It isn't you, as long as your numbers are okay.
Yeah. Because how did you, especially with, working back and spending the time, putting the detail into your program, how did you manage everything else outside of the gym to make sure everything was right for when you went onto for when you got into the gym and was training and got right onto the platform?
It's my life. I could set it up how I want to.
Is there any, because some people would say, oh, well, sometimes you get thrown a curveball or anything like that. What's your recommendation for balancing it?
That's why I said you could have in there a week or something where you can have as a down week where you might be beat up, or like you said, life throws you curveball. But at the same respect, I had some of my best workouts when I felt like shit.
Right.
It made me concentrate actually more. Now, you may go through like your benches and one or two little things afterwards, and you might be so tired that you can't hit a couple of the other little things that you like to do. That would be okay, as long as you get your main in and one or two other little things.
Yeah.
So you may be tired in that respect, but you're never as tired as you are if you fucking lose.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think taking it from that, it's more of a mindset type of thing, because obviously, like what you said there about getting your main lifts done, the accessory work you've got all the time. You know, you can do that. You can do that other times, or fit that in around. But especially going into getting your main lifts in, you've got that. Must have that mental attitude to get in and be able to.
I want to do it. This is a goal that I want to hit. If you really want it, you'll do it. If not, you'll make up excuses.
Yeah, and that's part of it, because I know you can mention that you're tired, but you can I don't know, have a cup of coffee or have a little bit of food. You can use other things to sort of bring you up a little bit. But yeah, if you want to chase that goal, sometimes, because there's that saying, isn't there, that you're going to have some workouts where you're going to feel like crap. You're going to have some workouts where you feel absolutely awesome. But it's that middle portion where you sometimes just need to get in and get the work done.
There it is.
Yeah.
It comes down to how bad do you want it.
Yeah.
People, it's easy to have an excuse. The biggest excuse is, this is just a hobby.
Yeah.
No, it's a goal. It shows that if you can't do it a lot of times or don't want to do it, it's actually a representation of you where you quit.
Yeah.
You could find a way. Yeah. I mean, not everyone's going to have the perfect life, but you could find a way and a schedule to be the best that you could be under those circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the same for most goals. There's always a way around it, or there's always an alternative that you can do. I know for a couple of people, if they travel around with work or something like that, it might mean that they've got two sort of main sessions that they might do before they go, and then whilst they're away, if they can find a gym whilst they're away, that might just be accessories or something a little bit different. That
you could set it up where that could, if you're away, you could have a down week where, let's say you had to go up to like 200 kilos for 5 reps in the squat, where you could go up to 160 for 3 sets of 3 in the morning in some gym close to wherever you're at, and walk out and leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then when you come back, you're not a bag of shit.
Yeah, most of the everything that when I see the content and the information you put out there, it doesn't always have to be this complicated, convoluted answer. Sometimes the simplest answer is the best one.
Yeah, just get a little bit of work in. Most people, if you're really a powerlifter, you set your vacation up right after a competition anyways.
I actually, it's fine. I had to laugh at that. I actually did. So last year, at the start of September, was the British Championships, and then 2 weeks later, I had 3 weeks I had a couple of days in New York, and then just over 2 weeks in Florida. So I tell you, it was quite a nice,
perfect timing.
Yeah, it was really good, and then by the time I got back, I was ready to do another block, and then
you're ready to go.
Yeah, well, sometimes I think it's quite good because you can feel a little bit refreshed, because everyone's a little bit more relaxed whilst they're on holiday.
Sure,
you don't feel as beat up, and then when you get back, I always feel like you've got that extra motivation to want to get back into the gym once you've been off for a while.
Yeah, because the gym is like home. That's your psychiatrist right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just gone to show that, yes, it's good, like lifting weight and seeing increases, but exactly what you said there, a little bit like a home and a good, safe environment to come into. I think that's been proven during lockdown, that the gym is a lot more than just, dumbbells and barbells and all that sort of stuff from
some of my first seminars I ever did was in the UK.
Yeah,
it was out of Birmingham, Chelmsley Wood Forum Gym that Chris Lawton used to own, and Johnny Neighbor and a whole bunch of strongmen used to come through there. Dorian Yates used to come there once in a while to get away from his own gym. So it was a pretty good hangout.
Oh, good. Well, I'm about 2 hours. I'm from Leeds, so about 2 hours north of Birmingham, so not too far.
Now, where's that in conjunction with like Andy Bolton?
Yeah, so Andy Bolton is from Leeds,
That's what I thought.
like the outskirts of Leeds. So that's not too far. That's not too far at all. I think his gym's sort of on like the outskirts, outskirts of Leeds. But he runs the Andy Bolton Deadlift Challenge, which I think is. It used to be Iron Athlete, but I think it's Ultra Flex Gym now. I think that's in Sheffield. I think it is because there's one.
Well, actually, Sheffield is where Jamie Reeves has a gym. Jamie Reeves is from. Yeah. I used to visit Jamie and his brother Jock all the time.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Jack the Ripper territory.
Yeah. So touching on obviously going back to the simple things and the routine. I just wanted to touch on how do you go about, because obviously when people start coming in and start lifting, you've got to start thinking about, right, you need to work through the routine of walking up to the bar, then getting yourself set and thinking about how you're going to set up, how you're going to approach the bar. How do you sort of coach it or get people to start thinking about a routine and what actually works for them and what worked for you?
Well, there'll be really a lot of similarities with the way everyone does it. But how they cue it in their mind will be slightly different. Like some people say, like my cue was open up your tank. And that was actually a way to make Mark Bell laugh, but it's a way when I would squat and I would push my knees out, I didn't like the lateral shearing force on my knee that I felt when I pushed them out.
Yeah. So
I concentrated on opening up my groin like my adductors.
Yeah. And
I just made that up to make Mark Bell laugh, but that's a cue that I used that no one else used before.
Yeah.
But when I walk up to the bar and I start getting under the bar, I start pulling the bar and pushing my body into it at the same time because I want the bar to be part of my body.
Yeah.
I want them to hook up and be one. And then I start squeezing my hand. Then I start pulling my arms in. Then I start locking my lats. Then you pull, as soon as you pick up, not your chest, but if you pick up your sternum, it locks your whole back in.
Yeah.
Now you're ready to get ready to take it off.
Yeah. I think that's when you said there, getting ready to lift the bar off. I think sometimes there is that little bit of rush to get the bar on your back and just to start lifting. I think that's the same for bench press and deadlift as well.
100%.
Is there any sort of tips or any things that you can pinch from certain lifts that help other lifts out?
The biggest cue I got is to pick your sternum up.
Yeah.
People don't pick it up. You can have some upper back flexion, just don't have any lower back flexion. Yeah. So once you pick your sternum up and everything is locked in, what I do is I pull against the bar. So I'm pulling the tension, but I'm wiggling my body into that weight, whether it's squat, bench, or deadlift. So now we're both hooked up and we're both really, really tight. We're in you're the perfect starting position to do that weight. You cannot wait till after you set up with a squat or after you get the bar in your hands and the bench to set up. You can't set up properly and get your body in the right spot to hook up when you have a heavy load like that in your hands already and it's all on your body. It won't work.
Yeah. And what's your, just sort of building on that, just looking at the deadlift side of things, because usually when it comes to deadlift, some people will try and, before they walk up to the bar and they'll try and create tension before they've even grabbed the bar. And then there's other people who will grab the bar and try and sink into it a little bit. Have you found that is one better than the other, or is it just horses for courses?
Well,
doesn't really matter.
If it's working for you and you're making progress, don't change it no matter what.
Yeah.
The way I did it is I would set myself up in the right position, feet and everything. I would squat down to the bar. Then I grab the bar and I pull myself into position. I wiggle in even closer to the bar using the tension of the bar till I feel everything just locked together.
Yeah.
Now I'm ready to start.
Yeah. Because from my point of view, obviously creating that tension, getting tight is really, really important. When you're looking about what are you doing with your the breathing side of things, because touching on the deadlift side of things again, or even on bench press as well, that some people can get themselves in a really good position and then the back starts rounding on deadlift, or the chest drops on bench, and they lose that tension. Is that down to breathing, or what have you found with that?
Well, it could be a few things. Definitely, if you let go of your air, or you don't take enough air,
Yeah.
or put the air in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
That's a key. You will relax. I usually like to take smaller breaths in the deadlift out of my nose and bigger ones out of my nose in the squat and in the bench. I didn't like to breathe too much air through my mouth because I didn't want to fill my belly up with air. I wanted to fill my lungs up, which actually got my body tighter, it felt.
Yeah.
The other reason why they go flat is their technique sucks.
Yeah.
That's it.
How is that from? Is that the setup then, or just?
Well, the technique problem could be you practice the wrong technique, or there could be a weakness in your back that shows up when you have a heavy enough load. Everyone can lift lightweight with bad form,
Yeah.
or keep good form with real lightweight.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where if you have a weakness, whether it's technique or muscular, it's going to show up in the technique. That's where you're going to have a breakdown.
Yeah, especially on the bench press side of things. So obviously, you mentioned there about your back. Do you think that, especially on bench press and touching on the ego side of things again, that everyone wants to absolutely smash bench press and have a look at the muscles at the front of the body, whereas actually, having a bigger, stronger back is actually going to help with everything in terms of getting stronger?
Yes and no.
Okay.
If you really want to get better, you'll focus on getting better and you won't worry as much about cosmetically.
Yeah.
I figured that if I could be the best lifter I could and lift the most weight that I could, I would look pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So I didn't really worry about it.
Yeah.
The end result is going to be the same. You're going to look good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to look better. So all you got to do is just try to get better each training block and be honest with yourself and write down on paper, where am I weak?
Yeah.
And then say, what exercises do I know that will actually help that and transfer over to help me get stronger?
Yeah. I think the key word there is just honesty, because I think everyone likes to focus on their own strengths and what they're good at, and there's no reason why you can't always make your strengths even stronger. But you do need that phrase of you're only as strong as your weakest link. That can be a little bit of a hit.
Take your time. If you really want to lift for a really long time, then take your time.
Yeah.
You'll get there. You'll figure it out much better, because if you race through it, you end up tripping up.
Yeah.
Albert Einstein has a line called "There's genius in simplicity." So you could take the most simple program, but now when you got to dial in your technique from all different angles, you got to pick the right numbers, the right sets, the right reps, and then all the right assistance exercises to go with it. It's not as simple anymore, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I was having a conversation with a coach this morning, and we were both sort of saying that as coaches, our first programs when we first started out, we wanted to put everything in and show off and look how good we're at. Whereas actually, it doesn't always. Just keep it simple. The more convoluted it is, and the more complicated it is.
What happens is it ends up being look how bad I am when the weight's really, really heavy.
Yeah, and it becomes a little bit harder to explain, and you can just lose track of what you're actually doing. The most exercises out there, which are going to get people stronger, are the simple, most effective ones.
Yep, it's how you program them in. If let's say, how long have you been competing?
I'll be going into my 6th year of competing.
Okay, listen to this. If let's say your incline press was a weakness, or your close grip bench, or your shoulder press, or your bent over rows, or your chin ups, or your stiff leg deadlift, or your high bar close stance Olympic lifting, or whatever, squat stance. If those were weak, and over the course of 6 years, you got all those extremely, extremely strong, so they weren't as weak anymore. As a whole on your body, how are you then?
If they're getting stronger, you'll get stronger.
Pretty damn good. But in the meantime, what you're doing is you're creating this suit of armor that wherever someone hits, there's a good strong chunk of muscle, tendon, ligament that won't break down. So you're actually extending your career also and making it more enjoyable. The only time it's going to be enjoyable is if you're making gains and making your weights. Yeah. If you're not, it really sucks.
Yeah. When you mention those exercises there, is that where you feel as though sometimes people will have their injuries and their sort of Achilles heel, if you like, if they don't?
It's usually based on an imbalance, a weak point that you let get too weak, and then it ends up breaking down some other point.
Yeah. Because with the, everyone likes doing the competition lifts, but and then sometimes, we mentioned there if you're tired or if things out and you're just going to do your competition lifts, but the assistant exercises still play a part, and if they're going to get stronger, you are going to be able to get stronger on other areas.
In the long run, you'll be stronger. That's what you want.
Yeah,
you got to lay down that base all the time. That's why what we talked about, the basics never go out of style.
Yeah.
If a boxer doesn't go back and learn how to jab and cross and uppercut and stuff like that, if he lets those get weak and this concentrates on fancy shit and stuff, they will get their ass destroyed. You always go back to your basics.
Absolutely. One of the best quotes I ever heard to sort of instill this point. So before I started competing in powerlifting, I played quite a lot of rugby, stopped playing rugby, I still wanted, something a little bit competitive. And during lockdown, I recorded quite a lot of sport documentaries. And it was when England were in the Rugby World Cup final, and the Rugby World Cup winning captain was called Martin Johnson. And they interviewed him, a little bit similar to the quote about how does a 1,000-pound squat feel towards a 500-pound squat feel. Someone asked him the question, what does it take to win a World Cup final? And his response was absolutely awesome. His response was, it takes the exact same as it would do to win a semi-final, a quarter-final, a group game, just a standard league game. You've still got to pass the ball, you've still got to catch the ball, you've still got to make your tackles, you've still got to win your own lineouts, your scrums and all that sort of stuff. And it is kind of that question of, how do you feel? What do you do in a cup final? And there will be moments of magic and that sort of stuff, but it is those basics, exactly like you've said that.
Yep, it's the same thing, but with more weight.
Yeah, absolutely. The other side of things that I wanted to kind of touch on is obviously within powerlifting there'll be the different types of equipment that you can use, and now with the various type of barbells that people can use, and belts and knee sleeves and wraps and all that sort of stuff. Do you think that every lifter needs all of this stuff, and that what makes them a lifter, or actually you can still get a reasonable amount of strength and then start adding in these other
That's the best way, because then you're getting a lot of things stronger without equipment that equipment takes away from.
Yeah. Do you think that people add in equipment and start playing around with different bars too soon?
Yeah. I think that only because that takes them away from the basics.
Yeah. Because do you think, because obviously, especially, I think we touched on it a little bit at the start, within social media, you see people doing all these crazy heavy things or different variations, and people are looking to do that rather than, right, actually, if you don't have a belt, if you don't have knee sleeves or wraps, let's just get focus on these and then start adding those layers in.
Well, a normal person would think that way.
How do you go about, or what do you recommend to people the timeline of, if you like, of adding belt or knee sleeves or adding other.
You know what? It takes a few years to lay down a good enough base to start building off of. It doesn't mean you're not going to compete in that time, but you just got to realize that you're not quite there yet, and you can't rely on just the basic movements. You need to do a little power bodybuilding type stuff to get some heavy fucking training in, to lay down that base, to strengthen everything so you have a place to go from.
Yeah.
If you that's like, you know, jumping in off quicksand expecting to be able to jump high. You're not going to do it.
Yeah. Because how did you start using belts and wraps straight away, or what was your progression when you were lifting?
Just a belt.
Yeah.
Just
Is that the first thing? Because obviously everyone always looks and thinks, oh, you know, I need to get this. Is that the first thing that you would say, or
that's the first thing you would need?
Yeah.
I would take them through a training cycle lighter, up to about 85% without a belt.
Yeah.
Just to teach your body how to get strong all around your real core. You know, squat and deadlift without a belt, that you'll get core strength then.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as soon as, like, I think you mentioned it there, as soon as you start adding it in, then you can start increasing your strength a little bit.
When it becomes a necessity because of the amount of weight you're using, or you want to use more weight, and it becomes dangerous not to use a little bit of something, then there's your answer right there.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing to remember. It gets to a point where it can become dangerous because, you don't want to end up injuring yourself and then having, you know, X amount of weeks, you know, not lifting.
Yeah, 100%.
One of the other things I kind of want to touch on as well is that obviously with the competition standard powerlifting bars, some people might be just training in standard gyms that might not have those bars, and sometimes, you know, they can worry about, oh, you know, it's not the bar that I'm going to be using in competition. Does that make any difference, or is it again just an ego?
Well, if you're going to use a squat bar in competition, you want to get used to it, or a deadlift bar, you'd want to get used to it. But besides that, I just have to say, aw, poor baby. Get fucking strong. Yeah. Don't worry about it. If you can get strong under adverse conditions, you'll be really damn strong later on.
Yeah, I'm quite glad you said that, because sometimes it's a case of, look, all right, the bar might be a little bit thinner, it's still a 20-kilo bar, you can still load it up, you can still put weight on, you can still lift from there, if you're strong, it doesn't matter what's on the bar, you'll still be able to still.
No, you have to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. And then sort of obviously, you know, from competing in the 80s and doing workshops and seeing the progression of strength sports and powerlifting, what are your thoughts on, is there any big changes throughout that time, or any big differences that you've seen?
The biggest change was some judging standards on some of the different federations are a little bit too lenient.
Okay.
That would be the worst thing. Equipment I don't really care about. As long as someone's going below parallel, or they lock out a deadlift, or they lock out a bench and touch their chest, or they don't lift their ass, you know, little things, as long as it's okay, it's a world record in that federation with whatever gear they use.
Yeah. I
don't like the word all-time record, because that's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit, you know, there's too many. There is a lot more federations, and standards are varying on different.
Yeah.
So it does become a little bit harder to tell.
Yeah, it's stupid.
That's the same with deadlift.
Because look, if you take someone from one federation that doesn't have to worry about drug testing, that gets to use a monolift, that the equipment they use is different, and judging standards are a little different, and weigh-ins are different, you know, 2 hours compared to 40 to 24. You can't compare those lifts.
Yeah. There's a lot more variation.
You know, if you do it in one of those, don't say, oh, I have an all-time world record. Because if you would have went in that other federation, you would have got your ass kicked.
What do you think about, because obviously deadlifts picking it up from the floor, what are your thoughts on, is there any similarity in deadlifts across the board, or?
There is, only in the fact that you have to squat, bench, and deadlift. That's the only same. I wish I would have had some of the deadlift bars they have now.
Right.
To see what I could have done.
Yeah.
I would have deadlifted more, but I would never say I would have deadlifted more than the guys now, because that would be really disrespectful, and I can't do that because most of them are really fucking cool.
Yeah.
They're really good guys.
Yeah.
You just take advantage of the equipment that you get to use.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, same as from a sporting example, you can only play what's in front of you. If you're that's the position and that's the bar that you're using, 100%. You can only lift what's there or use the equipment that's there.
Yeah, I'm happy with what I did, the way I did it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's it.
So quite a lot of topics and tangents and topics covered there. But the last question, most important question, for everyone listening, for everything that we've spoken about there, what would be your take-home points or words of wisdom?
I always just say, take your time.
Yeah.
You know what? You can write the most brilliant paper or dissertation in school, but if you don't dot your I's and cross your T's, your grade's going to come down from an A to a C.
Yeah.
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
So take your time and make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's, and everything is done with the intention of getting better, and each week builds upon the next. That's all you have to do. It makes it much more enjoyable. Don't be in such a rush, because if you're in such a rush, you're going to miss something that's going to show up later that could be your nemesis and hurt you.
Absolutely. I always try and use the analogy of it's like driving fast. If you're driving fast, you're more likely to have to swerve last minute, miss a turn off or crash or anything like that.
Exactly.
You want to get to where you want to be at that end point.
You get to see a lot more pretty things on the journey if you take your time. I have some of the coolest damn friends in the whole world, across the whole world, that I met. I mean, some of the guys I looked up to, Johnny Neighbor, your guy, Tony Fitton is a fantastic friend of mine. Tony Stevens, one of the best lifters ever of all time, regardless of anything. And there's so many cool and fun people throughout time that you can't take that away from them. And you should always remember and study them, because they're the ones that started it.
Yeah, absolutely. Having been there and done it for a long time, they haven't just done it for 12 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever. You know, they've done it. They've done it year on year. Thanks a lot for taking the time to chat with me. Really, really appreciated you jumping on and, you know, being able to chat all things strength training and powerlifting with you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And most of the time, if people just like tag me on Instagram or send me a video, usually I look at it and give them a comment for free, so no one has to worry about it.
Oh, cool. And for everyone listening who, you know, might want to see the content that you put out there, or if any seminars are coming up, where can people find you?
I have a couple in the States. Nothing really scheduled for overseas until all the COVID shit gets straightened out. And then I'd love to do some over there where you are.
Awesome. I'll be definitely looking out for that. And where can people find you on Instagram and see what you're putting out?
It's either Ed or Eddie Coan. I forget which one.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Eddie, for taking the time to jump on. Really,
you're welcome. Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Good. Thanks a lot to everyone listening, and I will see you all next week.
See ya.